Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for today or tomorrow or Tuesday or Thursday or Saturday or in the AM or in the PM or at midnight or when the clocks go forward, whenever, because after all it's your podcast. Now, some people come on this show an awful lot, and a lot of people that I know have been on a couple of times, but there's been one guy who, for various reasons, the stars have never ever aligned. So we decided just one day we're just going to do this. It's just going to happen. So tonight I'm presenting the I guess he's like the continuously successful, the man who hasn't only smashed open his head but he's cracked his brain from Brain Crack Games. It's rather amazing, the rather patient. Oh dear, Mr. Lewis Shaw.
Hello.
Hello.
I was waiting for you to say my name so I could actually say hello. I was just like, and then you cracked me with that.
So there you go.
Get it?
No, I didn't want to. Listen, I do the jokes here, Sonny. It's not in the script. If you refer to page 15 of the show notes.
Oh yeah, there it is. Don't do jokes in big red Comic Sans.
Exactly. Well, it's multicoloured Comic Sans, if you don't mind. It's rainbow coloured Comic Sans. Because that's what funny people do. That's how you recognise somebody with a sense of humour, because everything they do is in Comic Sans. But
that's what I do when I'm trying to come across as deadly serious. You'll only know when I'm angry when all my emails are sent in Comic Sans.
Is that why the "Do you really want me on" email tonight that you got sent me?
Tonight of all nights.
Of all nights. It's like, why is that? It's like, well, it's double Corey tonight, isn't it? Never miss double Corey. How are you though? I mean, are you well? I mean, it's delightful to actually have you on and have you here and have you chatting.
I'm good. I'm having, honestly, the weeks I'm having at the moment are just sort of havoc with two Kickstarters being not fulfilled in the postal sense, but sort of up in the air simultaneously, trying to juggle both of them.
Yeah.
And having several exciting projects further down the line that I'm trying to make sure that all the the legwork gets done for early on, and it's been manic.
Well, that's good, but it's not, as I say, it's long overdue since kind of having you kind of on. For people that haven't joined us before, thank you very much for listening. Especially all the people in America, howdy, because we have more listeners in America than we do in the UK. Howdy.
Let's expose them to our terrible American accents and tribute. Because every time I listen to an American podcast and they're like, "Oh, let's do English accents," and it's always simultaneously cringeworthy and so listenable.
It's simultaneously like Alfred in the 1960s Batman cartoon kind of sounded. Everybody always goes for posh,
but
that
Cockney.
kind of thing. Yeah, but Cockney. Go bean boy me, governor. It's awful. Awful, terrible. But for people that haven't listened to us before, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is because we wholeheartedly believe that there's not enough podcasts
nowhere near enough
about board games, especially not in Scotland. Well, we're getting there, because we've now got Unlucky Frog, and then joining them was Brainwaves, who have just appeared out of nowhere. I don't know if that's your doing, with you having your little brain crack games and stuff like that.
But my lawyers will be in touch. Oh yeah, people might be quite confused. I don't think we've actually said the name of my company yet. So
we haven't,
jokes might be flying over their head.
That's fine. I don't expect most jokes that we do to be flying over people's heads, to be perfectly honest. Your company's called Brain Crack Games.
Yes.
How long have you been around for now? Is it about 3-4 years now?
Only 2.
Really?
Yeah, we've just gone past the first, the second anniversary of our first release.
That's amazing. So,
yeah, it's
that's
actually
really, 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 really cool. But as I say, it's as I say, I have long overdue. I've apologised profusely already, so let's get on with the show. But we've got you on here for a couple of reasons. We obviously want to talk as you being what you would call a seasoned Kickstarter creator now.
Old hat.
But it's just to find out a little bit more about yourself, really, and obviously find out a little bit more about the projects you've done, and also look, and the potential projects that you're going to do. So we are going to have a little, I guess we're going to have a little look at the Downsize of the past before staring at the mind out of the present and going off into the far sight of the future.
It's nice. I like that.
We shall take
and
it.
then the dead and breakfast of slightly beyond that. It doesn't quite carry.
It doesn't. No, I mean it's kind of like and then afterwards you wake up after. No, it doesn't work.
I wish I could have been as well planned as to plan all my Kickstarters in kind of chronological endgame order.
You should have actually done that. You should have actually started off with Dead and Breakfast. I'm just saying. I'm not judging.
Yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, I would have.
But I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, how did you get into the hobby in the first place? I mean, what's your history with the hobby?
So, yeah, it was like most people, the kind of growing up with the Monopolies and the Yahtzees and those sorts of things. And then it was a couple of years ago, a friend of Emily's, my fiance, brought over, I think it was Betrayal at the House on the Hill was the first kind of glimpse that I got. And then as we played more and more things, I kind of realized this aligns with my skills and interests, and I can maybe do this myself. And that's when I started. Well, I was going to say that was when I started designing Downsize, but there was one much larger, infinitely more terrible game before that that does not get mentioned.
Listen, Frank West spoke about his Egyptian monopoly. If you think you're getting away with not telling us about this horribly huge
yeah,
Benedict Cumberbatch of a game,
that's fair.
You've got another thing coming. He gave us Egypt. What are you bringing to the table, Lewis?
It was a game. It was called Wasteland of Opportunity, and I guess I fancied it as like the next Fallout, but for tabletop. This was before Fallout got way too much space on tabletops.
Yeah.
And it was like a kind of semi-modular map, exploration, different, objectives, lots and lots of, unique cards with different things that they did, and it was all completely incomprehensible. And I did manage to get my friends who, the elevator pitch must have sounded good because they sat through it at least once. But then after that, we were like, let's maybe try something a bit less adventurous. So yeah, there were like lots of different characters that you could play out. So you were like assigned them randomly, and they all had there were lots of different things that they wanted to do, but because I hadn't designed much of the actual game, they were kind of limited to like run to this corner of the board, kill this many people. Like it's kind of weird, sort of arbitrary stuff using only what had been designed in it already. And it was just a pain to play and design, and
Was this at the same time that you were playing kind of other games as well? Did you kind of play away and then go back and say, right, I'm gonna go on with Wasteland.
It was probably really influenced by Betrayal, in that it was kind of moving around, drawing a card that explains what happens in a place, and quite kind of theme driven.
So I mean, how long ago was that?
That was probably about that was probably about a year before Downsize came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you always tinkered about with stuff before then? I mean, when we were playing other kind of games, did you always look at kind of like changing mechanics or bringing in house rules? Or
I was always thinking about sort of game design in the big picture. So I play a lot of video games and would think about what makes this good, why am I enjoying this. I'd be quite like kind of critically analyzing a lot of the time, but I'd never quite sat down and started tinkering before. So I think once I got over those initial kind of mistakes of like what is actually enjoyable at the table for people to do, I felt like it came fairly naturally.
I mean, is the board game stuff, is that connected to, I mean, are you still working a job, or is this what you do on a full-time basis?
I work a regular day job for about 40 hours a week.
Wow.
And then come home and do this as well.
So you're just coming home, no matter what kind of day it is, and then just cracking on. Is it a nice little escape sometimes from everything else? Or
sometimes it's a bit of a kind of crazy nightmare.
Yeah.
But it's trying to get through. It's like anything really. It's trying to get through the bad bits so you can get back to the things you really enjoy. Because of course, if you neglect the important parts like shipping games and customer service and stuff like that, everyone will hate you and they won't care what you've designed when you were doing all the fun bits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be that person. But I mean, so you put Wasteland to one side. I mean, is that when you thought, well, actually, I'll go for something that's a bit more simpler, a bit more easier to kind of get to the table?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to do something a bit simpler,
Yeah.
um, something with a bit more that felt a bit more unique.
Uh-huh.
Um, that being said, it took a large chunk of kind of visual inspiration from. We're talking about Downsize, of course,
Yeah.
um, and a game called it's either Train Yard or Rail Yard.
Okay.
Yeah, Train Yard that I had not actually played, but I saw um, some sort of pictures of the cards that someone shared online, and what Train Yard does is this it's like kind of block colors with like silhouettes
Hmm.
of the trains, and you put them all side by side, similar to things to kind of like Game of Trains as well.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
the graphic design of it kind of really stood out to me, and I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be uh, imitating the sort of big concepts that you see, like sort of big, lusciously illustrated fantasy games and stuff like that. And immediately when I saw
Yeah.
that, felt a lot more achievable. I was like, oh, that's something I can actually do. And
Yeah.
of course, it required a fairly low skill level. But then when I released it, everyone was like, "Oh, it's all beautiful and minimalist," and I was like, "Yes, that's
Yeah. It's punched
that
the
was an
air.
intention, and not just because I can't, draw for toffee." Like,
You just, walking past Frank West and going, that cost a fiver, that artwork, Frank. Just saying, bye.
yeah,
That was like that Microsoft Paint, and it's like, I'm just going to change the background from yellow to orange, save
yeah.
as.
It was. I did, however, put in a painstaking process of like putting all the colors side by side and trying to like group them by strategy, and there was a lot of thought that went into it, but it was literally just changing the
Just
colors
changing
until
the
they looked
background.
right, and I was like, cool, sorted.
Meanwhile, you kind of Emily's wondering, why have you got all these tester cards? You're not painting the living room orange. It's like, no, it's for the game. It's for the game. Be honest.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
getting little Dulux tester pots and painting all over the walls, and screw the security deposit. This is my art. Like, got to
See
dedicate
me.
myself to this.
Exactly. I am Banksy.
I'm like the Banksy of cardboard.
Pretty much. But I mean, one thing to be said for Downsize, it's brave to go for that kind of minimalistic art because, as you said yourself, there just seemed to be a big push. That people are going around trying to get something that looks like Leonardo da Vinci would go. That's pretty good. I like
Yeah,
that guy.
that's the thing is I realized fairly early on is if you have a small art budget, and this is not to say that there are other people who have had a small budget and created beautiful games, but on the whole, if you have a small budget and you're trying to achieve like sort of Fantasy Flight Games level of illustration, it's gonna invariably come out looking a bit, like your goblins are made out of fudge, and like it's all gonna look a bit, bad. I'm trying desperately not to offend anyone.
I know, but there is nothing. I don't know. I think it's not. It's the victim of the whole Kickstarter thing because the standards are quite high. When somebody brings like something out that looks very similar to like a Microsoft Paint kind of thing, you kind of
Yeah,
look at it and you kind of feel kind of bad. But as I say, it's a bold move to say, right, okay, let's go for something simplistic and pretty striking, which it kind of was. Um,
the tragedy of the thing is, I think on Kickstarter is there are a lot of like really really talented game designers on there,
yeah,
and the thing about game design is it's quite empowering. And you get to the end of the process and you put it in front of people and they're like, oh wow, this is really fun, and suddenly like it's one of the rare like kind of endeavors people can have nowadays where you'll make something, you'll put it in front of minimum four of your friends, and they'll all congratulate you on it. And then
Yeah.
I think a lot of people fall in the trap of, oh, well, if I can do that, I can, I can art direct and I can, fulfill and I can do everything on top of that. And I think a lot of really, really well designed games just get lost in the fact that, it has its, first 5 seconds on Kickstarter and there are people in the comments, dissing it because it looks like it was done in, Microsoft Paint. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of heartbreaking on some
Yeah.
level.
No, I've seen games that, like, when you watch the videos and you kind of read read the previews, or even you download the instruction book, mechanically the game sounds absolutely fantastic, and then looking at it you're kind of like, oh, that's a bit of a shame, kind of, because I know
Yeah,
people are going to look at it and just go, I'm not interested in it, I'm going to
people
go.
people just won't feel down.
Exactly. Were you surprised by the success of Downsize, because you went in with a £5,000 kind of funding goal, and you hit, yeah, I mean, you hit 6 times that. I mean, you came romping home at 31k, and I mean, this was obviously, this was well over, well, it was almost 2 years ago actually now.
Yeah.
Was that a surprise at the time, or were you kind of quietly confident with the kind of the audience and stuff?
No, no, it was, and I feel like a lot of people would say this kind of to be modest, or at least that's what it sounds like, but
Yeah.
it was a shock. Um, and you can look back at the way that we kind of planned and we built up to it, and it wasn't as though we were expecting it to do really, really well. The reason the day we launched it,
Yeah.
I had been like reading Jamie Stegmaier's blogs, and I'd been sweating over the Kickstarter page and like designing things and redesigning things. And Emily just walked up behind me, and I think she was just annoyed at how stressed I was getting over it. And she just said, oh, just launch it already. Just do it. Please, for the love of God, just launch it. And I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. And then I launched it. And then people started, immediately, it was within seconds, immediately people started pledging. Um, and it
I mean,
was from that point up until the end of Kickstarter, it was just a surprise.
how did you go about building the audience for this? Because this is 2 years ago, and people go, well, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, shmee, doesn't matter. But the kind of the whole audience building and everything like that is kind of, it's changed even since then. I'm seeing people do active kind of social media campaigns, and there's Kickstarter videos, and they're doing kind of like live streaming of how you play the game and everything like that. I mean, when you were going and building up the audience for Downsize, was there anything in particular? I guess the question I'm asking is, if somebody's in your shoes just now and they're about to press the button on their Kickstarter, did you do anything in preparation to build up the audience? Had you been out there for the previous 8 months,
Yeah, no.
kind of hitting venues and stuff like that? Or
It was that's what I mean about the preparation for it, is you can kind of track back, and you can look on the Brain Crack pages and on my page, and there was really nothing, or at least nothing of the scale that people have now.
yeah,
It was a freak of kind of Kickstarter nature. I think it got Project We Love, and it just kind of very, in the way Kickstarter's designed to do, kind of picked up an idea that wasn't necessarily popular to begin with, but then brought it out to a massive audience. Like that site's got, a million visitors a day sometimes, and
yeah,
when something gets swept up in that, which I think Downsize what did, it has a huge impact.
yeah. I mean, and then obviously that went out there. People talk about it, people enjoy it. I mean, do you still, when you've created something like that, are you conscious about kind of holding on to copies of the game yourself so you can sell it at like a retail level afterwards? I mean, did you do that with Downsize, or were you just happy that you were like sitting there going, 30k, my goodness. I mean, you're not made obviously 30k because you've got to produce the game, but it gives you possibilities in terms of what you could potentially
Yeah.
kind
Well, I
of
mean,
do next.
we overproduced by about as in we produced more than we needed to fulfill the Kickstarter by about 500 copies.
Yeah.
And obviously before long they were sort of gone, and it was out there, and people were enjoying it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't something we put a huge amount of thought into kind of pushing out to kind of like retail or like buying thousands upon thousands of copies of it and then dedicating ourselves to it because the reason this is called like Brain Crack Games is it's that each game's kind of an addiction, like a project that we kind of get really really involved in, and then we get to the end of it and we say to the people who got involved, we were like, really thank you for your support. We're going to like give you all the product, all the games and stuff, but we're going to do more stuff and it's going to be different. So we didn't necessarily hang on to Downsize. I think it was to its own benefit that we didn't hang on to it and say, oh, this is our lifeline. This is what people really want. Like, this is all we're ever going to do. We're going to do Downsize 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and make it a franchise. Like,
Upsize, the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's. I mean,
thought of that at one point.
What's that? You did.
It crossed my mind. Yeah.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Well, you did write it down in the show notes, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Upside, and then it's just crossed out.
Exactly. Never.
They're just my regular notes.
Just write it in Comic Sans again. But I mean, is that what you try to do with it? Do you kind of do the projects and then say, okay, this is the one-off. What can we get excited about next? Is that your kind of nature? Do you kind of get involved in a project, become very passionate about it, take it to where it is, and then kind of do the babe thing, which is that'll do, pig, and we'll just leave it to one side and move on to kind of the next thing?
It's a relationship that's changing. Firstly, for business reasons, but also for the fact that now, because we're publishing things that designers have brought to us, so we have to give it a bit more consideration than, we'll do this, and then you're back out on the street, and then come back when you've got another design, sort of thing. But it started off because that was what our relationship was as consumers with board games. That we would go out, we'd buy something, or someone would recommend something that invariably was completely different to what we had already played. Yeah. Like not many people go out there and they, the first game they pick up is a Euro, and then they're like, oh, good, I like this. I'm going to continue to play other games within the genre. Like, people play all sorts of different things for different reasons, and we wanted to kind of be a publisher that did different things for different reasons, and people could it then be a gateway for people that they say, oh, like I liked their like, sort of small card game, maybe I'll like their slightly larger mining game or their hotel building game or whatever.
I totally get that, because I mean it can be quite easy to, I'm not saying play the safe option, but it can be easy to become a company that ends up getting known for a particular style of game.
Yeah.
And also it's a double-edged sword, because you are those guys that could be kind of like producing different games every single time you release a game. I mean, if you look at One Free Elephant, they did they did their own, they did one game, and then they did Awesome, and then they went straight on and they did Carcosa, which were kind of vastly different games in terms of their theme, in terms of the mechanics and stuff like that as well. They were completely different. And for a kind of a new publisher to the scene, that was kind of like quite a brave decision. I mean, you moved on to I guess this is your kind of your Empire Strikes Back moment in Kickstarter, because you moved on to Mind Out, and you released Mind Out, but it went twice, because the first time it was unsuccessful. Did you again? I mean, was there anything that you kind of put that down to at the time? Because I mean, people talk about other successes, and this was a close call, and everybody likes the game that funds at the last kind of half hour and stuff like that. But obviously, there's also games that don't, they don't make it, they don't get through to it. And was there anything that was Mind Out as much as a learning experience as, say, doing Downsize then?
It was probably the biggest sort of learning experience of a release that we've had, because it didn't do well the first time it came out, and it was the other side of the kind of strategy that by that point we'd put ourselves to, if we're going to release really different things, and we came out with Mind Out, and we were like, we've put a lot of really hard work into this, and we know it's a really good game, and then people kind of looked at it, and we had a kind of fairly large following from Downsize, and we put it out, and people were like, "This isn't anything like Downsize." What? And they were like, "Why would we want this?" Because there were people who were into Downsize as a design product that they bought that, not necessarily because they were into hobby games, but because they liked the fact that it was kind of minimalist and it might be a nice coffee table game for them. And then when it was like, oh, it's like a kind of nice sort of like Disney-ish sort of family game, they were like, oh, okay, just to see around, I guess.
Yeah, no, but no, I mean it's establishing the brand, though. I guess it's just, you can't establish a brand with one product. I mean, it's very, very difficult to do. You always have to look at kind of differentiating slightly. You almost try kind of new things because it's all about kind of finding your feet at the kind of the same time. Did you? I mean, is that kind of what made you again kind of think that when you did Downsize, the fact that it kind of managed to hit a lot of kind of lucky breaks, being the project we love and it getting picked up by various people kind of looking at it. Do you think that was a bit of a double-edged sword, that it ended up not preparing you to maybe concentrate on the exposure that you needed for Mind Out?
I think it was something that we were kind of self-aware of when we finished it. We were like, oh, we recognize that there's a lot of luck that went into this, and we're going to have to try harder next time. And in a lot of ways, like we had the following, and we did a lot more kind of exposure and reviews and stuff, and there's the stuff that we hadn't even really considered the Downsize. Like I don't think there were any reviews on the Downsize page when it launched. And then we had an art budget for it as well. We brought in Alex Nikiforov, who was a really talented guy. So it was all something that we were kind of, we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to try again. But obviously, because of how different it was that was what stuck out to people. It was the thing that didn't have a budget or couldn't have a budget.
Yeah, it's kind of strange that Downsize didn't have any reviews on it.
Yeah, it's something that people say, oh, it has to have reviews on it, and
that's madness.
Your project will fail immediately if you have reviews. And even now, I think it's only had sort of one or two dedicated video reviews. So yeah, it was something that I think we were just kind of reluctant because we were still, we were students at that point. It was hand to mouth kind of situation. We didn't necessarily have the money to be going to print shops and cutting up cards and sending them to people all over the globe.
Exactly.
That sort of thing. And there was also obviously an element of we didn't know what we were doing. Whisper it.
Exactly. We have no idea.
I was thinking earlier, I was like, what if Richard asked me about Downsize and how that went? And it was really just remarkable that it went so well, considering everything that could have gone wrong with it.
But then things are meant. I mean, there's things are meant to happen for a reason. I mean, I kind of believe. I don't know, as time goes on, because you look at the guy that emailed Jamie Stegmaier and said, "Hey, do you want to come on a show that's not been established that long and have a chat about board games?" And he went, "Yep," and I went, "Okay." Something either really horrible is about to happen to me, or something really nice is about to happen to me, or I have done something really, really nice. So, to pay that back, I have been rescuing kittens out of trees and helping old ladies cross the road and stuff like that. But, I think things like this become a bit of a kind of a learning experience. And as you say, the landscape on Kickstarter is changing. It's constantly changing. There's always the kind of the next thing. It's almost like there's a cottage industry around Kickstarter at the moment in terms of, let me get you noise. And it's almost like you don't get noise when you're on the campaign, you get noise 6 to 8 months before the campaign, which seems to be kind of like it's just a way.
It's something that on some level I know that it's changed, but I still kind of resent the things that are now considered like gateways to entry. Like, if you don't have these 5 things on your Kickstarter page when you launch, we'll dismiss you entirely just because. And it on one level it's completely fair because there's 1,000,001 games, and why should people look at mine? But on the other hand, you want it to be design and and the actual kind of thoughts that went in behind it that count the most.
Well, okay, look at it this way, yeah. Kickstarter, the whole point of Kickstarter was an idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't called kind of like, second gear. And it's like, well, second gear, what that is, well, if you've got a budget of about $5,000,
yeah,
and you've got your artwork and you've got your prototype copies and you've got your, you've got your video produced and you've managed to get some reviewers on board and everything like that. It was a case of it's kind of changed from there. So somebody can't come on. I mean, we're talking about the artwork earlier on, and some guys you're looking at, and it's like sometimes that's all they can afford.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all they can do is to say, well, listen, this is the route, the easiest route to market is all I can afford, and I'm still looking for the funding in order to get some money together to pay for stuff.
But there are still miraculously those kind of like unicorns of Kickstarter where, with enough kind of pre-existing audience, people behind them saying like, no, seriously, this person's really good at what they do. Like, there are still those nice projects that you look at and you're like, oh, they kind of made something unique. Like every time Bez does a Kickstarter, there's a lot of people building around it because they know that this doesn't look like a cool mini or not game, but trust me, this is going to be cool. Like, get on board.
Every single time. I mean, she's got like a natural flair for just like, give me a deck of blank cards and I'll give you the next is going to be 3 hours of fun. And she's apparently also released a podcast. I forgot to say earlier on, but apparently she's doing a radio show, an internet radio show. As well, so best of luck to her for doing that. But then, she's got a deck of 52 cards, and she says, oh, here's different movements, and that'll be in a bind, and here's a whole pile of letters, and that'll be Wibble, and then okay, here's a very quick take that type game involving cats, and there's Kitty Cataclysm.
Yeah, and she's an artist in the kind of sense that Kickstarter intended to support. Yes. They set out with those kinds of people in mind. Like,
yes, and it's, as I say, we've been down this road so many times about the bigger guys that are out there, and they're going to be there, and they're going to be continue to be there for kind of a while. But let's not talk about them. So you dusted off the mine dust and the coal and the grime, and you kind of got back up again, and you went back out there, and this time Mined Out obviously went ahead and it funded.
Yeah.
I mean, when it reached see, okay, you just have to say, listen, I'm not going to answer this question. But is it frustrating when you put out a project and it doesn't fund first time round, and then you put out the project the second time, and then all of a sudden it seems to fund by, it doubles its funding target, and then it does then some on top of it.
Yeah, it was kind of. I didn't really change that much about the campaign second time around because I kind of knew, like, I think we were maybe a grand short the first time.
Yeah.
And I kind of said, like, a lot of these people, the people who have come out of the woodwork and they've not heard of me before, and they've said, oh, I'm kind of interested in this. Like, I believe in not necessarily Braincrack Games or Lewis Shaw or any of that, but just the idea of like a kind of pocket-sized mining game. Yeah. And I was like, if we do this another time round, we get all that kind of organic exposure again. Can we get another 10% of those people? And they came through in their hordes.
Yeah, and it was like a bit of funded. Did it not fund relatively quite quickly?
It was 48 hours, I think.
It just funded, and you're just like, you're not sitting there going, where were you before?
No, I think it was. Where were you? We got to the end of the first one, and it was like, everyone was like, oh, it's really a shame. And I was like, no. Sit right there. we will be back after this short break. Like,
do you not launch it was another 4 or 6 weeks later? I think it was a very, very quick.
Yeah, it was kind of a let's, get back on our feet, let's analyze, and then get back to it. Like, not sit around feeling sorry for ourselves for too long.
What you added to the game, Lewis? Nothing.
Yeah, so still good.
Basically, do you know what it is? It's like, you've bought a breakfast, yeah? You bought a breakfast for you and the partner and the wee boy. The wee boy hasn't eaten his breakfast, so we've just stuck it back in the pan and heated it up.
Yeah,
and
and it's still delicious, you know.
And just serving it again.
Like,
it's
but that's the thing. Like, I used to work in a pub, and if someone came up and it was a spoons name drop, I know, fancy. People would come up and they'd pay for all their food and the card wouldn't go through. And the first time it happened to me, I was kind of, oh God, Christ, what do I do? They've all gone and they've sat back at their table and they're like waiting for their food to come out. And I had to just go over and be like, about that didn't go through. I need you back up at the bar. I kind of pull them back up to the bar and then try again. And that was on a much larger, more public scale. Was mined out. Can you all just come back to Kickstarter quickly?
Can you please?
I reckon we can actually do it this time.
Yeah. And this time it won't give you, it'll be nice. I promise. But it was nice before. You were just like, here, put it out again.
But it meant that we had the steam to kind of hit it, a few stretch goals and make it a bit fancier. And it was also the thing. I've got a kind of mixed relationship with stretch goals because when I made Downsize, we had I think three or four very simple stretch goals. We're going to make the cars nicer, we're going to make the box a bit bigger, and then we're going to add an expansion. And then I got it in my hands, and I was playing it, and I was like, how could I ever have thought of putting this out in a little tuck box and not having an expansion in it? And the idea of having stretch goals that you really, really want in there, but you're like, I'm going to tease you, and then the possibility that you're going to fall short of that, and you're like, no, I'm not actually going to. I still really want that in there. I did this with Farsight, with Farsight as well, where we didn't meet one of the stretch goals, but I was like, no, it's going to be really good if I put that in, so I just put it in.
Because, well, Farsight was different because Farsight wasn't yours.
No, it was someone else's baby.
Fine was so. Was that? Again. How did that relationship kind of come about? Because what I'm thinking here is you're sitting there going, right, we've done Downsize, boop boop, we've done Mind Out, boop boop, we're looking for another campaign. Did you? How did that kind of happen? Did you just rock up and just say, well, I'm going to publish your game?
Well, so the prelude to it being that I met Peter Blanco of ITB Games of Subterra fame.
Don't know who he is. Never heard of him.
Well, he's another kind of little indie, another guy who doesn't get enough respect and makes his little things, and it's quite cute, I connected with him on Facebook after the Statecraft campaign had failed because failed campaigns don't just happen to me, And
just as a quick aside, we do love you, Peter. We
love you, Peter. You know that. Yeah. He had been chosen to be on the Wyvern's Lair at the UKGE 2016. Yeah. And I kind of said to him, I was like, how do you manage that? How do you pull that? And he was like, I don't know, just emailed them. And I was like, well, do you reckon I can just email them? And he was like, well, yeah, probably. So I did. So I emailed them, and I probably shouldn't really be saying this. But I emailed them and I said, can I be a judge? And they were like, yes. Who are you? Who are you again? And so we sat and we got, lots of really good pitches like Sarah Kennington from Awesome was there. Tristan Hall was there.
Tristan.
Kevin was there. Of Legends Untold.
He's still there. He's still probably there. He's still working.
He's still in the Hilton pitching it. In a massive card.
He's still writing his 50-second update of the day.
And Subterra was being pitched as well. And I remember it because Tim Pinder pitched Subterra. And Pete sort of turned to me, elbowed me very hard in the side. So I want that. And I kind of turned to him and I was like, I want that too. And we competed over
a Dragon's Den type thing.
Yeah, well, not on the day, but over the next couple of weeks, did you
have piles of money in front of you?
I wish. We had piles of money in mind. We were both trying to make the best of convincing Tim to get the game to us. And Tim obviously made the correct decision and went with Peter. but then I sort of spoke to a few other designers, and nothing was quite working out. And I looked at the submissions list, and there were lots of really interesting sounding games that hadn't made it through to the final judging that year. And that year it was the case that the people who are running UKGE kind of got the list of pitches, they picked out a few things, and those are the people who were pitching on the day.
Yeah.
So there was no reason for me to not to go back to this list and email a few people and be like, send me a prototype. And there were a few, let's say, not the best games in the world on the list. One of them was Farsight. And it came in the post, and it was this big thing covered in sort of like robots and mechs and RTSs and stuff. I got it in the post, and Emily said, "What is this? This looks really kind of boring, and this isn't really what we usually play." And and what is this? And then we played it, and we really liked it. And I kind of I wrote to Jamie, the designer, and I was like, here's the thing, I really like this. And yeah, I wrote to Jamie and I was like, can we publish this? And he wrote back and he was like, aren't you the guy who did Downsize and Mind Out and aren't those like small box games? This is a big, much bigger deal. And I was like, yes, but I really want it. Please.
Did you put that voice on?
Yeah, I was like, please.
Please.
And I kind of, I made the whole pitch that Downsize was just cards and Mind Out was just, and then Mind Out added kind of meeples and it's wood into the mix, and I was like, then surely the next thing should have minis in it. And he was like,
minis in a huge tactical war game.
Yeah, and he was like, sounds legit. What are you offering?
Sounds legit.
Yeah.
That's fine. Oh, would you like to buy a timeshare as well?
Yeah. And about after a couple months of kind of negotiating on the contract, because the thing about Farsight was, it wasn't just that he had designed the game, is that he had taken 8 years designing the game, doing lots of different things and kind of making expansions and then binning them and really refining the game until it was kind of polished. And since we've taken it on, we've really, apart from cosmetic things and thematic changes, we've really barely changed the game itself. And so it wasn't just a case of taking on a design that a designer had made, but something that he'd spent an awful lot of time with and was really important to him, and trying to make the most of it. So being our first kind of game that we had signed to publish, the pressure was on more than it would have been with any other game, I think.
Was there a temptation to introduce changes to the game? Did you still have to kind of like think, actually, I know that Jamie's worked on this for so long, but I'm not feeling this particular part of the game, or I think this could maybe be different? Did you have to kind of put almost like a developer head on?
Yeah.
And a marketing head on as well, which would have been a different thing altogether.
There were a lot of things that I either didn't really like, or I felt weren't kind of clean enough, or I was like, oh, have you thought about doing this instead? And a lot of times when I was suggesting an alternative, it was like, yeah, I've tried that. These are the reasons it doesn't work, but these are the way that we can kind of refine it for print, because he had not just designed the game, but he had learned how to use Photoshop and Premiere Pro, and he was moving up to try and do a professional production for Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And I said to him on like a few kind of points, I was like, the stuff you've made isn't quite up to scratch. We need to take bits back to the drawing board and retool them, and when you hold the the original prototype and the finished product side by side,
yeah,
you can see the link. It's not as if they are two vastly different games, but we had a big kind of part in putting the brakes on it and saying, could we change this? Could we retheme this part, and like for example, like originally when he pitched it in the rules, there were no set factions. It was like kind of blue team, red team, purple team, yellow team, and it was like, oh, make up the name of your faction and what kind of thing it would do, and it was kind of just like a kind of fun little aside, and I was like, can we have more theme and like lots of lore behind this and try and sort of build it up and credit to him, like he's very all the battles in the development were really sort of hard won, and we had lots and lots of almost near arguments about certain parts of it, but the lore of it and the kind of world building side of it he did hand to me, and he was like, well, once I'd convinced him that we should do it, he was like, this is your baby, you want this, like so that's probably the biggest part that I've had with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a case of, well, if this isn't going to work, I'm going to change it. I guess if you have got, Jamie's worked on it for 8 years, there'll be parts of it that he's probably spent weeks, months, kind of balancing up and thinking it's correct, only for you to go, actually, might need to think about kind of making some changes to that again.
It was stuff as well that every time we would, the trouble with this was every time we would have this discussion, like, I'm not sure about this. Like, he's like, oh well, I've really worked hard on developing this. And on the one hand, he's mathsing it out and he's explaining it in like very kind of like clear scientific terms. And then on the other hand, I'm like, but what if he's just spent too much time with this? Like, what if we're both too familiar with it already, and when we put it in front of new people, they're kind of going to be like, what is this? What have you guys even made?
I see it every single day at my job, where I work as I consult for working with businesses that sell through the marketplaces, and there is nothing more diplomatic than me trying to tell somebody that the product that they've worked on for ages really isn't, that doesn't make sense what you're trying to say to people, and you have to kind of completely reword it in order to make it kind of like to people to even understand what they're potentially buying, kind of thing. So I know where you're going from. It's kind of that level of diplomacy where you can say, well, I tell you what, I'll tell you everything I like about it, and I'll tell you everything that you kind of potentially need to change, but it's for your own good. And it's like it's just a simple case of being what I call being too close to the coal face for so long that all they can see is that this is their game, and this is their product, and this is what they've worked on, and that if you change it now, why would you want to change it? Because everything about it is fine. I've been working on this for years, kind of.
Because as a publisher, you kind of act as a mediator when you're not just saying, "Oh, I didn't enjoy this in a playthrough," or "I thought this was a bit confusing," but you're also having to represent the experiences of thousands of people who haven't actually played it yet. And think, what if people don't like this? What if they find it confusing? What if this doesn't flow? And of course, you can never satisfy every given scenario of a game. Like, how many times have you played a game that you usually love, but the day or the people or the time, it just kind of ruined the experience? Like, that's one of the weird things with board games, is it's so dependent on how involved the people are, and did you learn the rules word by word beforehand, or did you just flick them open before you're about to play and expect to know what to do? Like, it was something that you have to kind of consider every given possibility and be like, are we doing the best we can here? And also trying to not ruin your relationship with all your designers and saying like, and making it sound like you secretly hate their games, because of course you don't, otherwise why would you be there?
Exactly. One of the unusual things, I think, and it's not unusual depending on the type of Kickstarters that you usually go for, but you had two. I mean, the game went on and funded. Let's face it, it went on and funded. It funded again really, really well, and it was what, considering that your previous kind of targets were 5K, you kind of went up to 30K as your kind of like your baseline target. Which I must admit, when I saw it, I was like, whoa. That's a big climb from what you were doing with Mind Out, and it was, same with Downsize as well. that was obviously to take into account, obviously, tooling costs and everything like that associated with the game.
Yeah.
But one of the things was you went down the line of having a pledge that was including the miniatures and a pledge that was just including the kind of the game itself.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that come about? Was that one of those kind of long conversations that you had to have about, you know, I mean, did Jamie have miniatures in mind when he was wanting to put the game out there?
No. So when it first came to us, it was it had all the parts of the elevator pitch that it has now, but it was also like, oh, this is it's a war game that doesn't have minis. And I kind of looked and I was like, and that was, I think, part of what helped us to pick it up in the beginning was like, oh, we're just kind of adding like punch boards to what we've already learnt from manufacturing.
Yeah.
And then as we got further down the line, we were like, this is going to be a kind of not a big ticket item, but it's not a cheap game either. This is like 3 or 4 times the price of what we've already made. And also the fact that without sort of minis, it's quite a flat game. I know that's a really weird thing to say because a lot of board games are, you know, nigh on 2-dimensional, but we wanted to kind of lift it up and kind of evoke make it less of just an abstract.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you're in the wargaming space, then a lot of the, there's a lot of cardboard tokens and chits and stuff like that kind of going on. So it is a kind of a 2-dimensional. I guess it is like a 2-dimensional type of space. I guess
it was something that wargamers know what they like, and in fact, when we launched it, there were a lot of people going, "This isn't a war game. This is just a board game." Or in very contemptuous terms, like, "How dare you call yourself a war game?" And then like Warhammer fans were like, "How dare you call this a miniatures game?" And then
the Downsize fans said, "It's not minimalist enough. I don't like it. Where's the colours?
Needs less colours."
The Mind Out folk was going, "It's gems or nothing, folks.
Yeah,
I'm leaving."
But it was a case of let's try and find something that makes this game look as good as it plays, because we knew it was a really good game and something really special, and we were like, we need to kind of elevate this to a certain level, but also not price people out, which is why we ended up with 2 separate boxes. It was also that when you actually add both boxes together, when you put the war chest of miniatures on top of the core box, this thing's actually bigger than Gloomhaven in terms of box real estate.
That's a strong claim to make, Mr. Shaw.
I've done a side by side.
You better back that up. We want photographs.
I've got a photo of it. It was with the white sample boxes, but yeah, it's got about a couple square inches over it.
Really, that's kind of pretty impressive. That is kind of pretty impressive. But I mean, it came in at, the core game and the war chest miniatures kind of came in at about £90.
Yeah.
Which, funnily enough, nowadays, it's not that expensive compared to.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it was something that we're not very wealthy people. At all, and we wanted something that we were like, at a stretch, can we buy this?
Yeah.
And obviously, for a lot of people, especially in like the Kickstarter space, where they're used to spending, sometimes a couple £100 on a Kickstarter, like yeah, sure, I can do that, and it was just made it more accessible. And we're actually surprised that the vast majority of pledges were both boxes.
But I think it's the thing I'm missing. Out. I mean, I know. Do you know what? I guess this is the funny thing when people are screaming out about Kickstarter exclusives, is the fact that most Kickstarters are usually exclusive to Kickstarter. I hate to burst that.
Yeah.
I hate to burst that bubble among people shouting and screaming that, how dare they say it's only an exclusive to Kickstarter. But I can pretty much look down the line of all the games that I have, I've had creators on, and the vast majority of them probably won't see light of day outside Kickstarter unless they've been extremely successful.
Yeah,
I mean, even if
you've got like a few chances to get a Kickstarter, either on Kickstarter,
yeah,
or you attend a convention where that company is in attendance and selling that game.
yes,
or you find one of the retailers, and I mean find one of the retailers that are stocking them because they went through Kickstarter a lot of the time.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, and
people will turn around and Kickstarter creators and be like, "Oh, I made this much of my game, and hey, retailers, do you want some?" And they're like, "Not really.
no,
It's not never sold at retail. We don't know
no,
that it will now."
no.
Um, you know, and I'm not. This is not me having a go at retailers because it's a gamble to pick up
Of course it is.
a lot of Kickstarters.
I've seen Conan, and I've seen anecdotal evidence of people kind of going, "Ah, yeah, they're selling Conan for."
Yeah, it's enough that when I
For
see a when I
$25
see a
kind of
friend's
thing,
Kickstarter in a shop now, I'll take a picture of it and send it to them. Like
yeah.
there's not this kind of magical door with distribution written above it where you just kind of
No,
you walk out
no.
of
I
Kickstarter
mean,
and into that.
you have to work really hard for it. I mean, Jamie Stegmaier, he's one of the few guys that that we all know is made that bright, bold kind of leap, and kind of left Kickstarter behind with kind of Charterstone. But there's still, as we know, there's still many companies that just say, listen, I mean, I know we're making lots of money, but at the end of the day, distribution is a completely different thing, because in order for me to get distribution, I'm printing 10,000 copies and I don't even know if anybody's going to buy it off me yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of the whole kind of retail game as well. So it's like, so it's, but you went, as I say, you went on, it funded 53 grand over a budget of like 30k. It seemed to go quite well. It was steady, I think, was the good thing about it. And you kind of went, and when you funded, you must have went yes. But when it got to the end of it, were you kind of like, well, this is cool. This is everything we want. Kind of.
Yeah, it was a kind of case of this is like this is all right. Like because we knew the numbers that were behind the scenes, and with I think the majority of Kickstarters, you will slightly you will drop your goal slightly below, the everything you would ever possibly need to succeed, just because you want to hit that goal nice and early, and you want to be able to rise above it. And if I'd actually, set the goal at what we needed to make and ship X number of copies, we probably wouldn't have funded at all.
Yeah.
And even now, like we're on the cusp of fulfilling the thing, and we're still counting the pennies. Like it's something that on the outside it looks like a really well done, like really successful Kickstarter, and behind the scenes we're kind of like we're breaking it. And we're thinking, oh, but what if we do something wrong, and what if there is a an unforeseen like event that makes this cost an extra a couple grand. I'm looking at you, Brexit, because that happened with our first game.
Yeah,
we launched Downsize, and it was a couple of months later, it was 27th of June, and the morning after, our bills to the factory went up by $2,000 overnight.
And on the other side of it, you get somebody like Frank, lovely Frank West, who's like, City of Kings, his damaged boxes. He's having to go out and reprint a whole pile of boxes for people, and it's just unforeseen circumstances that can end up with money out the back of it.
People could very easily turn around and say, "Well, oh, if you didn't set your Kickstarter goal to the right amount to do this, then it's on you." And the thing is, you can never foresee everything that could possibly happen. Like I there are Kickstarter creators now who are like, "Oh, God, I've fulfilled my project, but I'm like bankrupted." It's a like a hell of a risky game.
No, I've seen it. I mean, I know I know of it, and I know of like even the guys that are like doing, they're doing the big numbers and stuff like that. I mean, it's still a very very difficult game, and it's like, and for again, it's another thing which seems to be this thing that seems to be creeping in about, oh, what you should do is you should set your funding goal as kind of like low as you possibly can, and it's like, do we want to be playing this game?
Yeah, it's one of these. It's like, oh, we need this to be able to succeed, to negate the fact that this probably won't be a hit. this won't be a blockbuster, goal smasher, but we've got to get this out there. And miraculously, I think the back, like it was a compared to a lot of other campaigns, it was a fairly quiet, and since we funded, we've had some people commenting saying like, "Oh, is everything all right? Like there's nothing kicking off in the comments. Like no one's having a go at you. Like, is everything all right?" And we're like, "Yeah." It's avoided a lot of the controversy. There shrouds a lot of either very successful or very unsuccessful games, and some people see it as a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, but you are. I mean, you seem to be trying to. I know it's like we joked about it. It's like the consistency of Lewis Shaw. It's almost like like a Dickens novel or something like that. But you just kind of like you get on you kind of. We're going to be doing another game soon, or we're just doing here's another game, and kind of Farsight has gone out there. I mean, is there going to be a tail on Farsight? Is there going to be the chance to print additional copies for retail, or is it going to be, as we said and joked, a Kickstarter exclusive? I mean, is there a chance for people to be able to pick it up in the wild?
Yes, is the short answer. The long answer is fulfilling a project of this size, like your margins will always be close. But we can hang on to hope because we know that we're going to have hundreds more games than we actually sold on the Kickstarter available at retail or for retailers, as the case may be. Like we're going to keep pushing this out, and we've without giving too much away, like we've got big plans for it. Like I was saying earlier about our first few games being like kind of that's done, let's move on. Like Farsight is a game that I think if it remains to be seen, but I think when people play it and they see what's in it and they're like, I expect them to turn around and be like, is there more of this? Do we have more?
Yeah.
It's something that begs to be expanded. Put it that way.
Well, you're getting that at the moment with City of Kings.
Yeah.
And I keep mentioning Frank like I'm obsessed with him. It says like I am looking at a poster of him on my wall.
We all are.
But he's lovely, and he deserves his success. He deserves that. But at the same time, City of Kings just seems to be there's a real buzz about it at the moment. People are playing it and people are loving it, and the Facebook page with it on is on kind of fire. It's not like the game hasn't crawled into the metaphorical grave and is sitting there hungry, which obviously draws me into the next game, Dead and Breakfast.
Yeah.
Which was again, this isn't yours.
No. So we've putting it fairly clearly, like with the exception of currently the only other thing I have planned to release from my own Uber is a second edition of Downsize with a number of changes to it. But we decided fairly early on, we were like, we can't keep developing and releasing games ourselves because it's just we're going to fade into obscurity if we put the amount of time into it that it needs to design from scratch a really good game. And equally, there are a lot of very talented designers out there, and it's quite nice when someone comes through your front door and they've got their own excitement for their own project, and they're just waiting to kind of spread it to you and get it out there in the world. And that was exactly what happened with Dead and Breakfast. We weren't sort of going out there and asking designers like, "Hey, you got anything for us?" It was a case we were at a convention called Dragon Meet in London, which we're now regulars at. And this guy called Daniel came up to us, and Daniel was working in finance in London. He was a very sort of well-to-do guy, very intelligent. He was like, my friend back in Brazil has designed a game. Can I show it to you? It was 2 games actually. And he showed it to us, and we were like, "This is really cool. Can we take him and play?" And he was like, "Yeah, here we go. And this is Rodrigo's number, and let us know what you think of it." And it was awesome. It was really good, and we were like, "Yeah, we won this." and it was not initially themed as a haunted hotel builder that you fill with beasts. It was a just an apartment building, and you filled it with lovely things, like flowers and dogs and teapots and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we like to be different, and we had already a couple of months earlier we had actually started designing and then gave up on an idea for a game called Dead and Breakfast about building a haunted hotel. And we were like, can we have that theme on this game? And he was like, yeah, as well.
Yeah.
And we worked with Louis Durant, who we had worked with on another previous project that ended up being shelved. And we went back to Louis. We were like, do you want to work on a new project? He was like, strangely enough, yes. And yeah, it all kind of, like I said, like it came together from the different but compatible passions of different people, like, all over the world, really.
Yeah. Because I mean, that went out, and that's that went on, and that's funded.
Yeah.
And it's a joyous looking, simple kind of. It's a kind of like as far away maybe from as Farsight as you could get, I guess.
Yeah, and it goes back to like we were saying, like you want. There are publishers out there who every time they release a game, it's like, oh, this is completely different from what they've done before. But I liked what they did before, and I reckon I'll like this one. An example I always give people is Renegade Studios, who have made Fuse and
they did Clank as well.
I think they did Clank, Lanterns, all sorts of things that aren't thematically like consistent. Like I suppose you could say like most of them are kind of like family friendly and none of them are too like expensive. But on the whole, they're no two games are the same.
You wouldn't be able to pick them out on the shelf if somebody gave you like a shelf, a full shelf of board games, and said pick out the Renegade ones. You wouldn't be able to pick them out just by looking at the box art and stuff like that. You wouldn't be able to look at the theme. You'd actually need to see it was a Renegade game in order to see it was a Renegade game.
And I think it's the same kind of formula of find a designer with an awesome idea, find an artist who has a unique and beautiful style, and kind of combine them, and with a little bit of crafty development in the background, you've got something new, which is something that, at least in in the case of any time I consider starting a new game with Braincrackers, like, am I still enjoying this?
Yeah.
Do I want to give up? Yeah. No. Okay, we'll do another one. And it's just. I know this sounds awfully cliche and kind of salesy, but it is just about kind of capturing that passion and that joy that people have for their projects.
And what's Emily's role in the game? Because this is one of the things is like I speak to a lot of designers, whether it be, whether it be like Carla Kopp or whether it be kind of like Peter or Frank or Kevin or Sarah but I take it Emily's been kind of behind you throughout the whole kind of process.
Yeah. It's a case of we're yin and yang in a lot of ways, and I'm kind of, let's pick up this game, let's do this. Let's spend £5,000 on art. Let's make it out of seashells and sprinkle it with gold. And she's like, could we just kind of do cards maybe? She's sort of in the background, sort of sanity checking things, and like
she's like saying, "What did you have for dinner last night?"
Yeah,
rice and beans.
Did you eat? What did you sleep? And yeah.
She kind of like looks after you, grounds you as well, because I think it can be easy. Again, we're talking about being kind of too involved in your own project, but I guess you can get to the point where it's like, we need another F5 key on the keyboard, Lewis, because you've wasted the last one from pressing F5 every 2 minutes on the kind of the last campaign, basically.
Yeah, but again, she's a victim of the same kind of passion for this sort of thing, that we go to, pitches and people show us their games, and she comes away from it like, can we have that one? Can we do it? That looks awesome.
That's. Hope that's not an impression of her.
No, I think if I called that an impression, she would come here and beat me.
She probably would. And she's now gonna looking up, going,
yep.
Are you talking about me, Lewis?
Yep, she's doing that face.
Don't think I won't kill you on a podcast live on air.
Yeah.
I mean, that would get the people in.
It would. It would be like, man dies horribly during podcasts. In brackets, we wish it was television, but oh well, it's a slow news day.
Oh, you know, exactly. Death by 1,000 cardboard cuts. What's next for you guys, though? I mean, is it going to be the normal kind of like, are you going to do like a couple of games a year? You think you've found your stride now?
Yeah, I think we've found our stride, and we've also kind of found the pace at which we can release things, and backers will say, okay, that's fine. Whereas with some creators, they have their first big hit, and then 2 months later they're like, oh, we've got this other one as well, and people are like, really? Eyebrow raise. But we were halfway through fulfilling Farsight when we launched Dead and Breakfast, and we kind of sent out a backer updating. By the way, this is what's going on with Farsight. We're about to launch this other one. This is why we reckon we're going to be able to, manage it. We've thought about this. Please don't murder us. And none of them did. No one. I don't think a single person turned up on the Dead and Breakfast campaign and said, "Where's my Farsight?" Because we have just nice customers. Really, I've not had many people be very mean to me online since we started this, which is a miracle. And if anyone here is listening, thank you for being nice. I'm not sure I would have coped if you were mean.
You don't want to see Lewis cry.
Yeah, no, that was what people said the first Downsize video was like. That's why I've stopped appearing in Kickstarter videos, because everyone was like, you look really depressed and sad.
Because it was like one of those charity videos that you get. Lewis is trying to bring a game for you to play.
Yeah, please help.
Text cardboard 8973 now. And help Lewis bring his dream to life before he cries.
It was
anymore.
Just so immediate though that I think I had shown it to my good friend Dan Ahern before we launched, and he was like, "Are you sure that's what you're going to use? Because you look like you're about to jump off a bridge." And of course, my voice does not sound super enthusiastic either. I'm kind of stuck with this droll monotone thing.
It's okay. I'm going to put it through like the auto tuner.
Oh thing. Yeah, but when you hear this, Richard will have raised it a couple pitches, couple octaves.
I would have put it at like 1.5 speed,
just so it's audible to humans.
Just so so it goes through. The whole thing will last about 20 minutes. It's going to be fabulous. And people are going to be walking and going. I think I listened to an interview, but I'm not sure. It went very, very fast. Indeed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But no, I mean, you sound like things are really, really going well. I mean, you've got a couple of funded projects you've got the funded projects under your belt. And you're kind of, you seem to be, you see it pop up again on the UK kind of Kickstarter Facebook group, which is which is kind of cool. But if people are wanting to keep an eye on you on the internet webs, where can we find you?
You can find us at, have you got pen and paper? Braincrackgames.com. Braincrack Games on Twitter.
Yeah.
Braincrack Games on Instagram. And Facebook.com/BraincrackGames. And you can email me at lewis@braincrackgames.com. And as long as you can remember Brain, Crack, and Games in order, you're all right.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be able to find them wherever you can. If you want to find out where we are, it's really simple. Go to Google, search for We're Not Wizards. Ignore the Apple advert that always appears. I'm hoping we don't get sued by them, by the way. I found a YouTube video that's Apple, we provide technical help, but we're not wizards. And I was like, oh, I really hope.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm already one foot out the door, so I hope no lawyers are nearby.
Exactly. It's, I don't know, we're not, I mean, this is my IP. I'll take Apple on in the courts. Come on. But no, if you go to Google, search for We're Not Wizards, you'll find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and Spotify and all these other wonderful places. You can find us on a whole plethora of podcast catchers now as well, like your Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Podknife, and you can find us through Podbean, which is our podcast hosts who are fantastic because every time we release an episode they put it on YouTube automatically. You can go to our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. You can, if you really like us, then, the Appley podcasty thing, you know what I mean? Go there, drop us a subscription.
Yeah.
If you really like what you've heard, then jump on to the review bit and give us a review or give us a rating.
Do it, or we'll break your kneecaps.
Don't say that. You can't threaten. Lewis Shaw is threatening you with physical violence unless you rate this show.
It was a joke.
It's not a joke. I can edit that bit out.
Edit me out saying it's a joke.
Edit you out saying it's a joke.
Let's get some libel cases going.
I could do editing, Mr. Shaw. But as we say, don't give us 10 stars, because it'll make us big-headed, and we're big-headed enough after being viral on Twitter. And don't give us a 1, because that'll make us cry. Give us a 5, because it's average. It's in the middle. And we are also in the middle and decidedly average. But the person who's not been average tonight, the man of the hour, the man who's, if he's not dead, he's giving you breakfast. If he's looking at you through a Farsight, he's never ever downsizing his thoughts about you.
You're never out of mind. There we go.
You're never out of mind. It's the wonderful, the fantastic Mr. Lewis Shaw. Thank you, Mr. Lewis Shaw, for coming on.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
I'm delighted you've been on. Absolutely. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Mr. Shaw?
Accusations have been made, but I can confirm I'm neither a wizard, sorcerer, or mage.
Fantastic. That's fair enough. Bards are acceptable.
Yeah.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Mr. Lewis Shaw. Say goodbye, Lewis.
Bye, Lewis. But everyone makes that joke.
Every single time.
I shouldn't have done it. Let me try again.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s. Get yourself in Brain Crack Games. Just for the plethora of stuff that they do, because it's all interesting, it's all very different. So whether you're looking for something wargamey, whether you're looking for something simple and accessible, whether you're looking for, anything, it's going to happen. Lewis will be putting it out there if, his previous track record is anything to go by. But until the next time, goodbye.